The 2024 Mercedes-Benz C-Class is a car that American millionaires buy, but usually after it is used, down half its value, and on sale by the wrong buyer. That is not a throwaway line. That is a pattern repeating itself quietly all across America. A 2021 C300 bought new for $52,000 sits in a garage in Dallas. 3 years later, it has lost $25,000 in value. It has cost another $2,700 in maintenance, and now it is listed for sale. The buyer is a business owner with a net worth of $3 million. He is not buying it as a daily driver. He is buying it for his kid to learn how to drive. The seller, the one who bought it new, is a young attorney. He just realized the car was saying what he wanted the world to hear, not what his spreadsheet was telling him. This video is about the gap between those two people. Part 1. What the C-Class really is, and who's actually buying it. The C-Class is the entry point into the Mercedes world. The base C300 starts at $48,100. Add popular options and the number climbs fast. The final bill usually lands between $58,000 and $62,000. That is not the price of a cheap car. That is the price of a decision that deserves serious thought. Mercedes sells around 85,000 to 90,000 C-Class units annually. That makes it the brand's best-selling model in the United States. But look at the buyer profile. Most new C-Class owners are young professionals in the early stage of their careers. They earn $120,000 to $180,000 per year. They are early in their careers and typically buy through a 36-month lease. This is not a group of millionaires. This is a group on the way to becoming millionaires, or who believe they are. People with a net worth above $1 million rarely shop for a new C-Class. They tend to fall into one of two camps. Either they go much higher, S-Class or G-Wagon, or they go much more practical, Lexus or Toyota. The C-Class sits in a gap that belongs to people still trying to prove something. And proving it with a car is one of the most expensive ways to do that. Part 2. The real price of the three-pointed star. Let's talk about the real numbers. Not the sticker price, but what you keep spending after you drive it home. RepairPal tracks average annual repair costs by brand. For Mercedes-Benz, that number comes out to $908 per year. The industry average is $652. That is a difference of $256 per year. That gap sounds small, but that average includes years when the car is still new and still under warranty. Once the warranty runs out, that number shifts. C300 Service A runs $373 to $425. Service B runs between $422 and $479. Both require specialized synthetic oil and a Mercedes-certified technician. You cannot take it to just any shop and expect the same result. C300 front brakes at a dealer run $600 to $1,100. A Lexus ES brake job runs $250 to $450. AC300 oil change at a dealer runs $180 to $280. An oil change on a Lexus ES runs $80 to $120. Each of these gaps looks small on its own. Add them up over 5 years of ownership, and they become a significant number. Mercedes parts must be sourced through the dealership or imported from Germany. That means longer wait times, higher prices, and fewer alternatives. Japanese parts are available at virtually any AutoZone or O'Reilly in the country. RepairPal notes 13% of Mercedes repairs involve a serious problem. That is above the industry average. The three-pointed star is not just something you pay for once at signing. It is something you keep paying for, one visit at a time, for years to come. Part 3, Depreciation, the silent killer nobody sees coming. Depreciation is a word Mercedes salespeople never bring up on their own. With the C-Class, that is exactly why. IC Cars analyzed over 15 million real vehicle transactions. The C-Class loses 52.5% of its value after 5 years. 5 years later, that C300 is worth about $23,000. The segment average for sedans is 42.8%. The C-Class loses nearly 10 percentage points more than the segment average, and that is before factoring in accumulated maintenance costs. Let's put that into real dollars. Buy a new C300 for $48,100. After 5 years, it is worth around $23,000. Buy a new Lexus ES for $42,000. After 5 years, it holds between $26,000 and $28,000. The Lexus costs $6,000 less up front. It holds its value better after 5 years, and it costs less every time you take it in for service. Those three factors add up to a $15,000 to $20,000 difference. That gap builds up over 5 years between cars many people treat as equals. But the C-Class carries an extra burden most other cars do not. Each new C-Class generation pushes the previous one down sharply on the used market. Mercedes refreshes the C-Class roughly every 5 to 7 years. That is fast enough to hurt anyone holding a mid-cycle car, with no way to avoid it. IC Cars has identified a consistent pattern in their data. Luxury vehicles tend to depreciate faster than comparable non-luxury vehicles. The used car market does not price by logo. It prices by the long-term operating cost the used buyer will have to absorb. Every day the C-Class sits in the garage, it is losing money. That is true of every car, but the rate at which the C-Class loses value is worth paying attention to. That gap never appears anywhere in the showroom brochure. Part 4, Reliability, when the data collides with the image. Mercedes-Benz built its brand on a foundation of German engineering excellence. That is a compelling story. But data from hundreds of thousands of real owners tells a different one. It is more nuanced and more expensive. RepairPal places Mercedes-Benz at number 27 out of 32 brands. The brand scored 3.0 out of 5.0. That score draws from data across 345 different models. Mercedes owners average 0.7 unscheduled repair visits per year. That is above the industry average. It is also significantly higher than Toyota or Lexus. Consumer Reports surveys over 380,000 vehicles a year. All of that data comes directly from real owners. They rated the 2024 C-Class positively for its cabin quality and driving feel, but they flagged below-average reliability on newer Mercedes models as a score drag. The control system was flagged as overly complex. The brake pedal feel was also called out for lacking clear feedback. On Kelley Blue Book, 47% of C-Class owners rated it 2 out of 5. Reliability was consistently identified as the biggest weakness. Design and comfort were the standout strengths. There is an important pattern here worth understanding. Mercedes is very good at making beautiful cars. Mercedes is very good at making luxurious cars. In independent reliability rankings, the brand consistently falls in the bottom half. Meanwhile, Lexus and Toyota consistently hold the top half. Engineering excellence and real-world reliability are not always the same thing. Part 5, Geography and Logistics. The risk the showroom never mentions. There is a risk to buying a C-Class that does not appear in any review, And it has nothing to do with the engine or the transmission. It has to do with geography. Mercedes-Benz has about 383 dealerships in the United States. Most of them are concentrated in major cities and coastal areas. Toyota has more than 1,500 dealerships. Lexus has more than 240 dealerships. But Lexus is backed by Toyota's full parts and technician network behind the scenes. For someone living in central Los Angeles or Manhattan, this gap is almost invisible. Think rural Montana, rural Texas, or the semi-urban stretches in between. A large share of American millionaires live in exactly those areas. For them, the nearest Mercedes dealer could easily be a 2 to 3 hour drive away. When a C-Class breaks down in those areas, the calculation changes completely. Flatbed tow, a rental car while you wait for repairs. Parts must be ordered through the dealer, sometimes shipped from Germany. The wait can run 5 to 10 business days. A work schedule thrown into chaos. A single breakdown, fully accounted for, can easily run $3,000. In some cases, it reaches $5,000 or more. And that does not include your time. This is not a hypothetical. That is the real reason. Service access matters more when you live far from a dealer. A car that does not work when you need it is not a luxury car. It is a logistics problem wrapped in Napa leather. Part 6. What real millionaires actually drive and why. So what do actual millionaires drive? Decades of research on wealthy American consumers points to a consistent pattern, and it is more surprising than most people expect. Thomas Stanley wrote The Millionaire Next Door. He studied the financial behavior of more than 1,000 self-made millionaires. His finding: the vast majority of them do not drive cars that reflect their wealth. They drive cars that reflect their mindset. The most popular brands among self-made millionaires are not Mercedes, BMW, or Audi. They are Toyota, Lexus, Ford, and Honda. An outsider looking at their cars would have no idea how much money the owner has. Lexus is a particularly notable case. Toyota-level reliability, low operating costs, an image that reads as upscale in any environment, and Toyota's full-service network running quietly in the background. That is exactly the profile someone calculating total cost of ownership would choose. That is why Lexus appears so often in the garages of high-net-worth individuals. This pattern is not random. Self-made wealthy people optimize every financial decision, not just the big ones. That habit is often how they got wealthy in the first place. A car is one of the most visible decisions you make. It is also where money leaks the fastest if left unchecked. Millionaires do not skip the C-Class because they do not know what it is. They skip it because they know exactly what it is. And the math does not work out in their favor. Part 7. Why the C-Class still sells, and exactly who it's selling to. At this point, it would be dishonest to only tell one side of the story. The Mercedes-Benz C-Class is not a bad car. For a very specific type of buyer, it is a completely defensible choice. Say you work in finance, law, or senior consulting in a major city. Your car carries measurable professional value in that environment. You live close enough to a dealer that service logistics are not a concern. You lease for 36 months and hand it back before the warranty runs out. In that context, the C-Class is a defensible choice. The driving experience is genuinely good. The cabin is genuinely beautiful. Consumer Reports projects the 2025 C-Class will improve to average reliability. That is a positive signal after years of inconsistency. Mercedes is also making serious investments in build quality on newer generations. All of that is real and worth acknowledging. But the problem is not that the C-Class is wrong. The problem is the C-Class is often bought by people who do not fit that profile. People who keep it 5 to 7 years and absorb the full depreciation hit. People who live far from a dealer and turn every breakdown into a logistics crisis. People who buy on emotion and pay for it on a spreadsheet. The right car in the wrong person's hands is not a smart decision. It is just a cost disguised as German design. Part 8, a philosophy hidden inside a car decision. Let's go back to that 2021 C300 in Dallas. The young attorney has listed it for sale. 3 years. $25,000 gone. $2,700 in maintenance. And one evening, he sat down and recalculated everything. He realized the car never served his finances. It served the image he wanted others to have of him. That is not a lesson about cars. It is a lesson about the difference between two kinds of decisions. Decisions that make you look wealthy and decisions that make you actually wealthy. Those two things do not always go together. In fact, in many cases, they pull in opposite directions. Millionaires skip the C-Class, not because they do not deserve the three-pointed star. They skip it because they have learned, usually the hard way, something important. Real wealth is built through decisions others never see, not the ones others can read from a parking lot. The Lexus in a millionaire's garage is not a compromise. The C-Class in that aspiring millionaire's garage is the real compromise. It is the compromise between what the spreadsheet says and what the emotions want. And in that compromise, there is always only one side that wins.